I really want to empower parents to feel like they know what to say and they have got the tools to make the positive impact. What are my passions? What are my interests? What are my talents? They are not doing it and they don't have time. So when you sit in a coaching session and I'm presenting you with these questions and you're being forced to reflect and answer and think about them, you know yourself better. And now you're learning more about, oh, this is a talent of mine. This is a strength of mine. I am good at that.
So you did bachelor's in social work and then also went on to get your master's. Okay.
I did.
Yeah, I had a similar experience kind of. Always thought it was crazy, as such a young person and being so young in the field that they kind of just let you jump into their, like one of my internships was at a therapeutic treatment center for people with like long-term persistent mental illnesses, and it kind of made me really nervous as a student. So.
Oh, yeah. I remember being, for my master's program, I was a therapist and I was a 21-year-old and I was working with married couples.
Yeah.
What did I know?
Yeah.
Not much.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's how you learn, and look what, that all of that work got you to where you are now. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you just kind of figure it out. Well, I'm super curious, as I was preparing for this show, you work with a very niche group. Like you've really identified who you want to work with. And I'm kind of curious where that came from. How did you make that choice?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, I was given the opportunity in my internship as a young social worker still in school to work with teens. And I really fell in love with them and I could so identify with them. I wasn't that far away from them in age. And, I had several jobs after graduating from grad school. And one of my last jobs that I had before I became a mom was at a local nonprofit here in Austin, Texas called the Girls Empowerment Network. And that was focused on, tween and teen girls. And it was at that time that I just really fell in love with really wanting to support and help girls feel good about themselves, feel like that they're able to accomplish what they want in the world and believe in themselves. And then when I became a mom, there were a lot of serendipitous things that occurred that led me to this world of coaching and the ability to work for myself and have a nice work-life balance so I could also raise my son.
Yeah. So I was actually just about to ask, do you have daughters?
I always say it's like the biggest cosmic joke. Like I've spent my whole life, dedicated to learning about girls and researching girls. And then I was given a boy, which obviously I knew very little about. So it's funny, but I really do now see in hindsight why it turned out that way. I get to be in these girls' lives in a really important, impactful way, but I don't have any of the resistance because I'm not their mom or their dad.
Yeah.
So I really get to have a beautiful impact and a meaningful part of their lives in this role.
Yeah, I always I can identify with that. I think I really enjoyed working with teens myself, and why because one, I had, as we all do, had challenges as a young person, and so I really felt like I could relate to some of these kids, and also in some ways almost get to help them in a way that I wish someone had stepped in my life in this way. And, and kind of take on that role. And like you said, I'm not your mom, I'm not your dad, I'm not your teacher. I get this special little role,
Oh, absolutely. I say often, I would have loved a teen life coach when I was a girl. I would have loved a Barb in my life. It really could have helped.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of obviously very different because coaching is different than what I'm about to say. But, like Big Brothers, Big Sisters is an organization that puts positive adults in young people's lives. It's kind of similar to that.
Absolutely. It all matters. It all counts. I mean, I don't think you can have enough people that care about you and want the best for you in your life.
No, absolutely. So when you started your career did you start coaching the teens first or did you start coaching the parents first?
I started coaching the teens first, and I had a long history of working with teenagers. So that's where my mind and my heart went. And then the longer I did the work, and built into the coaching packages are sessions with parents. But I learned pretty quickly that parents need as much, if not more, help than the girls. And now, having done this for so many years, I really do see that parents often don't know what to do, and so they're seeking a professional to quote unquote fix whatever needs to be fixed in their child's life. When really where I'm coming from now is that I really want to empower parents to give them the tools, because they're with their children multiple hours a day. I'm with them 1 hour a week. And I really want to empower parents to feel like they know what to say and they have got the tools to make the positive impact.
Yeah, I think that's something I found when working with teens. Also, again, I worked in the juvenile justice system, so these are kids who had gotten in trouble. They had done something that got them in trouble with the law, and I actually worked for a very unique attorney, a defense attorney, whose mission in life was when he represented a young person that they never reoffended again. So my job as a social worker was to try and get to the root of what is it. And a lot of the
Yes.
times when I was kind of getting to the root, the parents were oftentimes, not pointing fingers, but how the child was brought up was oftentimes some of the issue. So I think it's really smart on your part that you work with both.
Yeah, I agree. And I love it.
You're like, that's why I do it. Um, yeah. So tell me a little bit. So walk me through this a little bit. You get a new teen client, a girl. Um, where do you start? How does the process go? Like, I guess, is it really individualized with like what they're dealing with? I'd love to kind of hear more about that.
Yeah, it is highly individualized. So the first step is a parent will reach out via email. I'll set up what I call an inquiry call, just a 20-minute complimentary call, just to get a sense of what is it this parent wants their daughter to get from coaching. What is her daughter experiencing in her life? I want to make sure that it's a good match, that coaching is the best form of treatment at this time, and that I'm the right person based on that call, based on that information. The next step is a 90-minute parent-only intake where it's like a psychosocial assessment. I'm asking lots of questions about all different areas of their child's life and their family life to get a sense of everything that's going on and get a better sense of the parents' goals for coaching, because I see the parents as a client as well. And then we work in coaching packages of 6 and 10 sessions. And in the first coaching package, it's called a foundational coaching package. So we're building the foundation of our coaching relationship. We're building rapport and trust. And I have specific tools that I use for the first 4 sessions with that teen to get to know her and to help her to get to know herself and to get clear on her coaching goals. So then that last session, session 6, in that first package, I'm meeting back up with the parents. Now I have a better sense. Is this a good match? Am I the best person for this child? And are we a good fit? And then we'll move forward from there. It's very individualized depending on what that girl is dealing with and what it is that she wants to change in her life or feel better about or have more of or less of. So it's very personalized.
Are you finding in this relationship? So again, the parent reached out first, right? They're the one who felt like there was some need for this, and then you start working with the teen. Is the teen, the girl, the young lady you're working with, is she able to articulate what she wants? Like you mentioned, like we want to talk about what she wants out of coaching and like what her goals are. Um, I mean, I've found some of the kids. I've worked a lot with teenage boys more, and they're like, oh, I don't know, like I'm just here. My mom told me to be here or whatever. So I'm wondering how much of that you deal with.
One of the most important questions I ask in that first inquiry call is, does your daughter know that you're reaching out to me, that we're talking today? Is she interested in receiving support? If she's adamantly against it, I'm not going to be able to be successful. Mm-hmm. But if you get anything other than a strong no in teen speak, that's probably a yes. I would like some help.
Yeah.
So I don't really, what parents they have a different experience with their kids than I do. So often in the call, they'll say, oh, she's really shy, or she doesn't talk much. She's very closed. She's very private. They, give me these types of descriptions. And to be honest with you, I don't even take it in, because my job, and, not to toot my own horn, but I think I'm pretty good at it, is to create this really safe, comfortable environment where they feel like they can tell me anything and they will not be judged. And I do not have an agenda, and I don't need them to be different than they are. And I let them know this is a little different than therapy, and that you are in charge here, and you're letting me know what it is that you want to feel different, be different. And yes, some girls might have a little bit of trouble articulating that, but my job, using the tools that I use and also using my line of questioning, is to help them to be able to articulate that, because I do believe they do know it on the inside. They just need the right questions to be asked.
Yeah, that's it's super interesting, because like you're making a very stark distinction between therapy and coaching, which is, I think, so tell me a little bit, what's the difference between the two?
So I have a document that kind of outlines side by side therapy versus coaching. And a very important line on the top of that document is, I believe that good coaching and good therapy certainly overlap. Mm-hmm. So I think to simplify it, one difference is, with therapy, it can be a different lens. Like, I'm looking through what's wrong, what needs to be fixed, what diagnosis do I offer, what treatment plan am I laying out for this person. Whereas coaching, I see it as a little bit more empowering, that there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing that needs to be fixed. If you're in a coaching environment, which I've assessed in our calls, and you're empowered to let me know what it is that you would like to see in your life to be different. And then my job is to work with you to throw out strategies, ideas, processes, new ways of being. And then your job, it's a very action-oriented process, is to take that strategy, try it out in between sessions. Let's see if it works. Let's see if it helps. If it doesn't, we're going to try a different strategy.
Okay. That makes sense. I mean, that sounds like, me as a fitness coach, and I do, I help people with their lifestyles. It sounds similar to that, right? Like, it's like, hey, what do you want? What are some of the things where you're stuck in your life? And how can I partner with you to get unstuck and find some new tools for your kid, to carry on with you, Yeah,
sounds absolutely.
Very similar. Same. So what are some common areas that you might be working on with these girls?
Mm-hmm. There are probably a handful of very common themes. One is definitely self-esteem and confidence. Another is friendships. That's a really big one, struggling with friendships. Communicating with parents is another big one. Anxiety and stress and pressure is really big in today's world. That's another hot topic. Those are probably the top ones.
Yeah. Having one daughter who's now out of her teens, but still a young adult, and having another daughter who's 9 and kind of, working her way. Like, I'm already hearing her dealing with some of the things that you just mentioned, her friendships and her self-esteem and things like that. You start at 15. That's the age you start with. Is that, tell me a little more about why that age and not younger or older?
So I started off knowing that I wanted to work with teenagers, and I started off with 13-year-olds to 25-year-olds. I do have a coach on my team, Miranda Dawn, who's wonderful. She works with girls 13 to 25. I work with girls 15 to 25. And really, it's just a personal preference. I really enjoy the more brain development they have, the more cognitive ability and nuance they have. And it's just more rewarding for me.
Yeah.
So that's really what it's about.
Yeah, that makes sense. At our gym, we have youth programs, and sometimes I don't but I loved coaching the teens class, and I really struggle with, like, we have like 8 to 10 year olds and like 5 to 7 year olds. I struggle with the younger ones, but I just love the teens, and I guess it's the same thing. It's, you just kind of have a sweet spot.
Yeah, it's just personal preference. I've worked with the little ones in the past too, and they were fun.
Yeah. Um, so with some of these, so we've kind of started going down the road of, like, you do an intake, you figure out what they want and what they need, um, and then it sounds like you give them some homework and stuff, like, in between sessions. Can you tell
We
me a
call
little
it
bit?
life work.
Okay, yeah, tell me a little bit about this life work.
Yeah, so it's different for every girl. It's based on whatever she's dealing with. So if I look at this week, with a few of the girls that I'm coaching, so one girl's life work is she's going to reach out to a new potential friend and ask her to hang out, because one of her coaching goals is developing friendships. Another girl, I'm asking her to walk around the school in every moment of every day and to look for potential new friends and girls that are similar to her, that are aligned with her values, that look like they might be a little bit on the outside and might be in need of a friend. Because this is a girl that tends to want to be in the popular group, and that's not working for her.
Mm.
And, there's a lot more to say about that, but that's her life work. Another girl's life work is how to respond to her mom in such a way to not escalate the arguments. And so she's learning communication skills and how to respond. And there's just such a wide variety. So it's acting on, you've got a main goal. I want better friendships. I want a better relationship with my mom. I want to be less anxious I have another girl that has a lot of social anxiety. She has a really hard time doing things on her own. And so her life work might be, she would choose it. I wouldn't dictate it, but she might say, okay, this week I'm going to go get gas all by myself. So we're basically using exposure therapy for her to get more comfortable and more confident. So it's different for every girl, but it is an action-oriented process so that she can feel empowered, that she's making these changes, she's seeing the changes, and she knows that they're coming from her.
Yeah, I'm kind of like thinking through this, like I'm thinking about myself as a teen, because a lot of most of us make it through our teenage and young adult years without a coach. Is there, like, and I'm a big believer that everybody needs a coach. I don't care who you are and what you're doing. I think everybody needs a coach. I mean, sports is an easy one because we're used to that, but business coaches, all different kinds of things. So what is it about the girls that come to you that are different, that, like, maybe there was something that necessitated this coaching relationship?
Well, I wouldn't even say there's anything different about them. I think the girls that we see are what they're experiencing and living are very common for the majority of teen girls. So, as I mentioned earlier, my job is to make sure in that first phone call and that first intake that coaching is the appropriate form of support. Some girls need something more intense. They might need something more therapeutic, like therapy. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't say that there's anything different about them. I think often their parents see they're struggling in some way and they feel ill-equipped. They don't know. They've tried what they know. It doesn't seem to be helping. And some of that is just because the nature of a teen relationship with their parent, when they're trying to separate and be independent, parents might be doing everything right, but the daughter is not receptive just based on being a teenager. So sometimes that coach relationship can really offer what it is that she needs to grow and change.
Yeah. What are some of the, you've been doing this for quite a while. What are some of the common successes that you see? I mean, what are the results that a lot of these young ladies are getting?
I like to say, so many, so many. I like to tell parents that woven into every single coaching session we have, we are working on identity. That's one of the most important, it's one of the two most important developmental tasks during adolescence, identity and independence. So identity is, who am I? Why am I here? what is my purpose? What are my values? What do I believe in? That's all identity. And they're really exploring that in adolescence, which is ages, 12 to 25. It's long. And successes, when you ask that, my first thought was really identity, is them knowing themselves better. I can think of a girl that I was just coaching with today. I would say one of the biggest things we're working on is her knowing herself and knowing what works for her and what doesn't. And she's beginning to listen to her gut or listen to her heart versus only focusing on people pleasing. How can I make sure everyone else is happy instead of myself? So what that means for her tangibly is that she went from an AP class in pre-cal to a regular level, because that's what was needed for her to not be so stressed and feel like a failure. That was difficult for her because her identity was, I'm an AP student. Yeah. So it was a big thing. As an adult, it might sound like not a big deal, but for a teenager, it is a big deal to adjust your identity and make a choice that's difficult to make because it's for your best interest and it's also for your mental health. So that is one. So many. So girls making choices that are in alignment with their mental health, girls letting go of friendships that are toxic and choosing people that really highlight and bring out the best in them. Girls that make choices that reduce their anxiety and stress. Girls being able to communicate and stand up for themselves and use their voices and have their own backs, whether it's with their parents or their peers or their coaches or administrators. Just so many successes.
Well, what's super cool, like I'm listening to you speak about this, and I work with adults now mostly, and so many adults I'm working with struggle with what you're talking about right now. Some keywords that you said that are some of the first things I try to do when I'm working with people: values and purpose. There are so many adults that I know that they haven't clearly defined what their own purpose is, and they haven't clearly defined what their values are, and so they're kind of floating around the world not being able to kind of articulate these things, and they know how to draw boundaries and so on and so forth. So what are some things that you do with these girls that you work with to help them figure out their purpose and their values?
Yeah, so that's really woven into almost every session as well. So for example, one of the very early tools that I use with them is called My List. And I'm giving you a long list of options for your values, your interests, your talents, your passions, and you're checking off your top 10. And then I'm asking you to reduce it to your top 5. And girls, especially in today's world, they're so busy and overscheduled and tired. They're not sitting back. They're not laying in a hammock in the backyard asking, what are my values? What are my passions? What are my interests? What are my talents? They are not doing it and they don't have time. So when you sit in a coaching session and I'm presenting you with these questions and you're being forced to reflect and answer and think about them, well, now you know yourself better. Yes. And now you're learning more about, oh, this is a talent of mine. This is a strength of mine. I am good at that. And I'll say one of the most important pieces of my work is holding up a mirror, metaphorically, and showing these girls who they are. I had a girl in my office this afternoon, and she is really struggling with her mental health, her happiness. She feels like her parents have no faith in her and that they've given up on her. These are her words. So my job is to remind her those thoughts, those beliefs that you have in your head, they're telling you a story that is not true. And it is impacting your level of happiness. So let me tell you what I see, the person that I know. And then I begin to tell her what I see in her. And you literally can see their eyes, like as they're taking it in. And they're starting to begin to hear a different story about who they are. So my job, when I think about what you just said about the adults, and I was one of those adults that had to learn all of these things as an adult. I don't want any girls, but the girls that I work with, I don't want them to have to wait till they're 35, 45, 55 to learn their values, their purpose, their worth, who they are, why they're here, that is too late. Why would we do that?
Yeah.
So I see that as a huge part of my work.